We're getting to that time of the year where teams that are out of the finals are announcing delistings for some of the players that haven't quite met the level that was needed from them at each given club. So I wanted to take the opportunity to look at some of these players who have been recently delisted and see if they make up our mould at the club and see if they can play a role in 2025. The reason why I am encouraging that we look at the idea of delisted players is because I think fundamentally we'll talk about rumours and players as they come into the news, but fundamentally Collingwood have a lot going right and we just need a few gap fillers to really take us to the next level. I think this year, a few things went wrong, coaching changes, personnel, retirements, injuries. I think it was the season was completely riddled by a bunch of variables. So the list itself isn't so bad to suggest that we need to be going for, I guess, wholesale changes at the club. But outside of the draft, the rookie draft, the preseason supplementary period, I really think Collingwood should look to add players that are either unrestricted free agents like Tim Membry or Laverde, who you could probably get for a bag of chips at this point, maybe a second rounder to pair up with Darcy Moore, and then younger players. I mean, Alex Davies was an option, but he's looking to sign on. Who else has signed on recently? Mark Keane. These players are in that really, I guess, convenient age bracket for Collingwood. I've been, I guess, ranting on about how we need that 20 to bolster the 20 to 24-year-old stocks, Bailey Smith, so on and so forth. So if we're not looking for those players, then outside of that, I don't want us to be going for Dan Houston, Christian Petrarca, so on and so forth. So looking at some of the delisted half backline flankers. Now we know John Noble there's a chance he goes to Gold Coast. So naturally, we're going to need players who are experienced to pressure players like Will Parker, TJ and Di Mattia and Jacob Ryan in the VFL. Whether they get games or not, these delisted players that I'm going to mention, they're going to provide experience in the VFL. When you look at our squad in the VFL this year, it was really deprived of wisdom in the sense of AFL nous. And that goes a long way in, I guess, building up your players, your young players, and transitioning them to AFL level. So we've got Josh Dacos. He's our go-to guy with the ball in the half back line. And then I'm wondering about players like Nick Hind from Essendon. He played 15 games this year. He had 2 coaches' votes. That counts for anything. 11 disposals. And what's his scoring involvements? What was his scoring involvements like? Where are we? 3.3 scoring involvements, which is not too bad. And like I said, he's not necessarily going to be that player who's in, week out, bit defensively liable. But whenever you see Nick Hind put on that red and black jersey, or Guernsey, whatever you want to call it, he gives it his absolute all. And I think that's really complements the culture at Collingwood. The effort's there. The effort these days is a given. Like, that shouldn't be a point of difference. But there's something extra that Nick Hind can provide. And I think if it's not at AFL level, if we rookie list one of these players, it's to help progress the development at VFL level. And with so many players that are young in that position for Collingwood right now who aren't necessarily quite ready to take the next step, I think Nick Hind is a great, I guess, player / coach who could maybe embrace those younger players and give them the wisdom they need to take it to the next level. At age 30, he could be mindful that he could be looking at a coaching opportunity thereafter. So yeah, he ends his, I guess, time at Essendon, being delisted, previously at St Kilda. So he's been a wanted player in the past. Is it a matter of coming to another club and not being out of favour and really just giving them the keys to express themselves on the field? So that's my chain of thoughts with Nick Hind. And then we got someone like Riley Bonner, who was initially at Port Adelaide, who was in the system for quite some time, and then he's moved over to St Kilda as of 2024, and he averaged 21 disposals in 19 games. Watching Riley Bonner, playing off that half-back line / wing. He's not afraid to bite off the difficult kicks, but it has gone back the other way for him, which has probably hindered his position in the club, and maybe that's something Ross Lyon isn't looking for. And I was a little bit surprised, in particular with Riley Bonner, having played 19 games and not being offered a contract is an interesting one in my opinion. And for me, it just seems like another opportunity for Collingwood to rookie list another player who has shown ability and can help nurture these players and compete at the same time. I think early on he had one of his highest rated games in 2024. Let me go here. He had a really good game. Disposals wise, and I remember just saying it was against Essendon actually. Had 32 disposals, 29 kicks, 7 inside 50s, and 6 score involvements. And then in round 9, he also had 6 score involvements. So there's been a lot that I've liked about Riley Bonner's game with that left foot, and can add some value to the team. And when these guys come at no cost, not having to give up draft picks, and we can take them on a lesser contract, on a rookie contract, I feel like these players are worth some serious consideration to help further build that team for next year. And then we look at the forward line. Sam Day from Gold Coast has recently been delisted. Now, he's a bit older, granted, okay? He is 32 now, but he played 5 games this year, and he averaged 2 goals a game. And if Tim Membry doesn't work out, this is a caveat, right? This is the preface. If Tim Membry doesn't work out, if Jake Stringer doesn't work out as far as getting them to the club, then can we look at someone like Sam Day? The big question mark is, can he stay on the field? In 2021, he played 6 games. 2022, he played 4 games. 2023, he played 3 games. And 2024, he played 5 games. I think in 2023, he had a really good year in the VFL, but the years before that, he was having hip issues. But this is somebody who knows where the goals are. And just looking at his performances this year in 2024, what were his best games? He had some good games in the latter parts of the year. He kicked a goal against Collingwood in that loss that we had, and he kicked 2 goals against North Melbourne in a loss against them. But he had 11 disposals and 8 disposals respectively in those games. He had 6 contested marks against North, and I think like 4 of them were in that first quarter when I was watching that. So there is something left in him. Is he one of the primary targets? Absolutely not, when it comes to these players that have been delisted. But it's just another player who has been delisted from the club, and because there's not a bunch of delistings announced yet, because a lot of these teams are still in the finals and haven't had their final exit meetings, these are the players we're working with right now. And I'm just thinking, based on personnel needs, if we don't get Membry, if we don't get Stringer, if Reef McInnes isn't up to it, then can we bring someone in like Sam Day to once again help, players in the forward line? If Kruger isn't up to it, or if Kruger moves to Essendon by way of a trade to get someone like Laverde or Kruger or Stringer over, these are the permutations and variables that I'm considering when looking at such players. The next one is Matt Taberner, another forward who has had some difficult years when it comes to the injury front and form, particularly early in his career, but he's always showed potential. I think there was a season a couple years ago where he had kicked 37 goals. 37 goals, 2.3 goals averaged per game in 2021. He kicked 23 in 13 games in 2022, and he's only been able to string together 4 games in 2023 and 5 games in 2024. But if any of you know, when Matt Taberner is up and about, he's a workhorse. He works high, up and down the ground, and is a great contested mark, and just has that, reliability about him if he is playing and if he has consistency. A decent contested mark at times. His best years, he averaged 2.8 contested marks a year, and he's done that twice, which is an elite number for a tall forward. So if he can get his body right, and if we can get into the club for all the reasons as mentioned before, on a cheap contract, no trades needing to be given up, then why can't we rejuvenate Matt Taberner, give him a fresh look? He's been at Fremantle since 2013, since he was 20 years old. So does it take a new look, a new S&C team and physio team to look after him and reinvigorate him? So that's another player there. And then lastly, In the midfield stocks, we've got Seb Ross from St Kilda, who surprised me. I'm quite surprised as to why he's been delisted. I did message Jake from Saints TV to get his opinion, but I don't think he's replied just yet, because I only messaged him like 10 minutes ago. Jake, hello if you're watching. Seb Ross, at his best, was near on All-Australian, if not maybe has been All-Australian once or twice. In 2017, he had 68 coaches' votes, which is like, that's up there with the rest of the best players in the league. This year, he played 13 games and averaged 16 disposals. And how much midfield time was he getting? 41% of the centre bounces he attended. So his role was always rotating, whether it be on a wing or in the forward line. That's where Seb Ross would find himself. But he did say to the media that he feels like he's got more left in him. And you'd imagine there's teams like North who are looking to get a more experienced midfielder to help those players progress. I think this is another player we can potentially look at. He's typically fast. And while we're waiting for the next young group, young core to come up through the midfield, and I keep mentioning this, we're waiting for Thomas McGowan, who's going to step up when it comes to Finlay McRae and Lockie Sullivan, Bytel. Nick Dacos is already doing great things, but outside of that, we just don't have young midfield cattle. So until we get to that point where we're able to do that, and hopefully we can draft along with a key size player, hopefully with the draft picks we get from John Noble, Joe Richards, and pick 32, which we already have, hopefully we can do something and get some younger midfielders into the team. Does Harry Di Mattia have potential to move into the midfield at some point as well? So while we're waiting for that to happen, we can't sit on our hands. Can we get someone like Seb Ross to help nurture? There's a big theme in this video. Who can we bring in to help nurture? Like if we looked at who we brought in rookie-wise or previously delisted players in the preseason, we got Josh Eyre, Jack Bytel, and Lockie Sullivan. All young players. So they're not necessarily all young when it comes to experience in AFL. Lockie Sullivan, 25, 26 years old. Is he young now? Not necessarily. He's like right in this ripe age at AFL level. We didn't bring in experienced players to help nurture in the VFL. I think this time around we can mix that up because our older players are still all playing in AFL consistently. And those older players like Pendle, Sidebottom, Howell, Will Hoskin, Elliott, when they're done at AFL level, they're not playing VFL. We need older heads who are willing to remove their ego and be willing to play VFL on a consistent level to bring these players up. Let me know what you guys think. Go Pies.